Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome to Adventures in History. Today's topic is Comedic Pedro 1970. You can see I'm wearing this t-shirt. Look, it appears to be based on a movie poster, Night of the Vampire, and Dracula, Prince of Darkness. Has a fine adjective, horrific, which is good for a horror movie. And as a boy, I was into, like probably a lot of children, I was into monsters, and that was part of my childhood. And at the time, back in the '60s into the '70s, the ones that I liked were Frankenstein, Dracula, and Werewolf. Those were the classic monsters of in the United States, well, and really global culture. Yeah, and so I enjoyed it. In fact, we had a movie camera, a movie projector and a camera. My father bought a few of these very short movies that he played were from Frankenstein and Dracula, I believe. And then, so I enjoyed that. Yeah. In fact, a lot of kids. And they even had the breakfast cereal of Frankenberry, based on Frankenstein, and Count Chocula, which I think those are still around. And then as I got older, when I was older and got into literature, I ended up reading the Frankenstein, which is by Mary Shelley, written back around 1810, maybe around that time. Really an old book. And I taught that in our school, Restless Educational Center in the Philippines. And then, that's a pretty good book. And then Dracula by Bram Stoker, which is also, he was from Ireland. Mary Shelley, actually, she started off, she was a girl. She was with friends. They were telling stories, and she made up this story, and they said, "Oh, you should write a book," and it became, a famous book. Now, I don't think I'm not aware of a werewolf book, and then the other, there was a Hunchback of Notre Dame. Well, he's kind of not exactly a monster, but there's horrible aspect. Good fellow though, and Phantom of the Opera. Hunchback of Notre Dame by Victor Hugo. Of course, that was in the news recently. They had this terrible fire at Notre Dame in Paris, France. Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. He's sort of a monster type. Although I think it's a man who lives this sort of secret life. And another movie from my childhood, Creature from the Black Lagoon. Actually, so I really enjoyed mostly the Frankenstein, Dracula, and Werewolf. And sometimes they would appear, two of them or all three in one movie. So that was a lot of fun. So I really enjoyed those. That was part of my childhood. Now, on the cover for today's video has a picture from The Odd Couple television program, which aired from 1970 to 1975. It was based on the play, also called The Odd Couple, by Neil Simon, and there was a 1968 film with the same name. And this was a very funny, enjoyable TV program. Tony Randall plays the character Felix Unger, and Jack Klugman played Oscar Madison. And these two fellows, they're opposites. Felix Unger is meticulous and very organized, and everything's he's very orderly. Yeah. And then Jack Klugman plays a sports writer who is very messy and kind of a slob and kind of loud and boorish he makes, so they're living together. They're both divorced, and they share a Manhattan apartment. There were 114 episodes, and it was developed by Gary Marshall. So this was a very funny program, and true to life, because in life we're all different, and in this case you have these two guys very, very different. And at the opening sequence has Oscar Madison, who. This character he's smoking a cigar, and he throws it down on the pavement or on the sidewalk, and then Felix Unger has an umbrella, and he pokes it with his umbrella and holds it up like, look, what's this? And then also in that sequence, Felix Unger tries to help an elderly woman cross the street. He's a good guy, and she hits him with their bag. She thinks he's attacking her. So this was a funny show of these two fellows, very different, trying to get along. A lot of humor. Felix was very meticulous, they're just opposites. So that was a very wonderful television program. Now, the events of 1970 on January 5th was the first episode of the soap opera All My Children on ABC TV. Yeah, it's funny, in the old days you only had a few channels, not much on TV, and so and these would play during the afternoon. And I remember once in a while you might turn it on, the TV might be on, and I never liked soap operas. They seem depressing, and but they're still around and popular. January 11th, Super Bowl IV. The Kansas City Chiefs defeated the Minnesota Vikings 23-7. I think the Vikings lost. They appeared in 4 Super Bowls, lost all 4, so I'm still rooting for them to win one. On the 26th of January was the first quarter storm, student riots in the Philippines against the dictator Ferdinand Marcos. Yeah, so that was really... Although I'm not sure if he was a dictator yet, elected in... well, anyway, they were protesting against him. March 21st was the first Earth Day proclamation by San Francisco Mayor Joseph Aliato. Now, here in Cleveland, we have fellow family friend Scott Sanders. He runs this Earth Day year-round, this organization dedicated to the environment and protecting the air and water and the wildlife and so forth. April 1st, in the United States, U.S. President Richard Nixon signed a bill into law that banned cigarette commercials on television starting January 1, 1971. I think it was a very good thing. I was shocked when I went to the Philippines. They still had, I think up till now, they have cigarette commercials on TV. This was a good thing, too. Smoking isn't healthy, so this really, I think, helped the United States move away from smoking, because our country was very much Americans were smokers back in the 40s and 50s, but not so much now. Smoking is way down, and I think that's very good for health. On the 4th of April, fragments of the remains of Adolf Hitler and a number of other people were scattered in the Biederitz River in Magdeburg, East Germany. Gosh. May 1st, U.S. President Richard Nixon ordered American troops into Cambodia. The Viet Cong, the North Vietnamese, were using Cambodia to bring in weapons and soldiers into South Vietnam. So he ended up ordering the U.S. into Cambodia. And, of course, we'd been bombing. Yeah, there was bombing of Cambodia. This became big news, and sort of, the anti-war people said, "Oh, this is terrible," because he's widening the war. That was the expression. And I remember as a kid, our father, he was against the war, and at one point he called the White House, and we were shocked, like, "Oh, wow, Dad called the White House." Big deal. So anyway, so this was this part of this tragedy of that very tough war. May 4th were the Kent State shootings. Kent State, Ohio. 4 students were shot and killed by National Guard troops, and this was based on related to a protests against the Vietnam War that got out of hand, and the governor of Ohio ordered the National Guard in to restore order, and this was very tragic that these 4 young people got killed. On May 8th, the Beatles' 12th and final album, Let It Be, was released. So that was really something. Still a very popular band. That same day, the New York Knicks defeated the Los Angeles Lakers in Game 7 of the NBA Finals. And that was the first NBA championship for the New York Knicks. I believe they had Walt Frazier on that team. And I think won another one, and haven't won one since maybe 72. June 4th, Tonga, island in the Pacific Ocean, became independent of Great Britain. On the 4th of June, The Who became the first rock band to perform rock music, the rock opera Tommy at the Metropolitan Opera in New York City. Wow, just imagine. To quote my mother's mother, my grandma Smallsha, June 13th, The Long and Winding Road. The Long and Winding Road was the 20th and final single of the Beatles. Reached number 1 on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100 list. That's still a beautiful song. The long and winding road, bum, 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 that leads to your door will never disappear. I've seen that road before. Don't leave me standing here. Lead me to your door. Many times I've been alone. Many times I've cried. but still they keep coming back to that long, winding road. Very touching song. Sorry about that terrible rendition. On the on the 30th of June, Riverfront Stadium opened in Cincinnati. Yeah, pretty good. That's where the Cincinnati Reds, I believe this was an artificial turf surface. Yeah, and Cincinnati, this was the getting into the big red machine Cincinnati Reds baseball era. Tremendous team. On July 11th, the first tunnel was opened that went through the Pyrenees Mountains between Spain and France in Europe. This is a big job, just imagine. That was tough, but very important, really helpful for travelers between Spain and France. On July 16th, Three Rivers Stadium opened in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where the Pittsburgh Pirates and Steelers, I believe, both played. Where the two rivers, the Allegheny and the Monongahela come and join together to form the Ohio River on land where George Washington had once passed through because when he was a young man and involved with the conflict between Great Britain and France over what's now western Pennsylvania. And of course, this stadium became famous in the 70s with Terry Bradshaw and the Steelers doing very, very well. And also the Pittsburgh Pirates had a strong team as well. Okay, September 9th, Elvis Presley started his first concert tour since 1958, and this was in Phoenix, Arizona. Wow, Elvis was back. On the 11th of September, the Ford Pinto was introduced, I believe a small car. On the 18th of September, Jimi Hendrix died. Tragic, age 27, overdosed from sleeping pills. This was a horrible tragedy because he was a very talented fellow, talented musician. So the young people were very sad. The fans of his rock music. On the 21st of September, the first Monday night football game was played here in Cleveland, Ohio at Cleveland Municipal Stadium. And the Cleveland Browns defeated the New York Jets 31-21. And in fact, the Jets had won the Super Bowl a couple years before, and they had Joe Namath, who I thought was the coolest guy in one of the coolest guys in the 70s. 85,000 fans. Big. A lot of people just thought, what's this Monday Night Football? But of course, it became real popular. And Art Modell of the Cleveland Browns agreed to have the first game here in Cleveland. Okay, on the 24th of September, The Odd Couple premiered on ABC. This TV show I mentioned a while ago. It had had a nice song at the beginning. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Okay, October 4th, Janis Joplin died at age 27. She overdosed on drugs. So a second tragedy in a short time, and another young, talented musician gone too soon because of the scourge of issue with. We were really the drug problem was really probably early. Started in probably the late 60s, where the drug problem really became something that really destroyed a lot of good people, talented people. On the 8th of October, Alexander Solzhenitsyn won the Nobel Prize in Literature. He had written these, and the thing is, he was, I think, more of a historian, but he wrote historical fiction, which really helped bring down the Soviet Union, because he, was writing about the reality of life, and for those who believed in the Russian Revolution or believed that the communist government was creating a good government, this really opened people's eyes to the reality of that things were really, really bad in the Soviet Union. And I think played a major role in bringing the Soviet Union down, because the morale, people thought and it was true. So he was a tremendous hero, I think. On the 10th of October, Fiji, another island in the Pacific Ocean, became independent of Great Britain. I believe it was in the South Pacific. On the 17th of October, there was a cholera epidemic in Istanbul, Turkey. Tragic. Same day, Anwar Sadat became president of Egypt. Of course, he became the leader of the first country to sign a peace treaty with Israel, and he was shot and killed because of that by this folks who wanted to remain, anti-Israeli. On the 26th of the month, Gary Trudeau's comic strip Doonesbury appeared in the newspapers, and that was up till now. I think that's still going. An ongoing cartoon, and it was very political. Actually, it was very much against Richard Nixon and the Vietnam War. November 8th, Tom Dempsey, who was born with half of a right foot, kicked the longest field goal up till that time in NFL history, a 63-yard field goal to help the New Orleans Saints win their game. And I think later, I believe that may have been broken. And he was born with this. His foot was missing the front part, so it was kind of like a hammer. He just banged the ball, and he kicked that amazing field goal on the 23rd of November. Rodgers and Hammerstein's Oklahoma debuted on television. Now, some unknown things from the year. Alvin Toffler's book Future Shock was released, and the AFL and NFL merged to form a new NFL, and the AFL teams, most of them became the AFC, and most of the NFL teams became the NFC in the new NFL. And then actually Cleveland was one of the teams that switched. Cleveland was an NFL team and switched to the AFL to make it balanced. Now, in my family, my father and both my parents turned 46 in 1970. They were busy people, good people, and had these 4 kids. My dad was busy with his law practice, and also, they had a lot of energy. They were still in their 40s, and both in good health. Both really probably doing too much. Really good people, very service oriented. Now, my brother Mark turned 18. He the first 6 months of the year he was in grade 11, and then and then in the fall he started grade 12, his last year of high school. So Mark was a young man and a real good student. He was an Eagle Scout in Boy Scouts, and he was a musician. He played the violin, and he did very well in the Rocky River Orchestra. We'd go to see him perform in the orchestra. Pamela turned 16, her last birthday. Tragic that she ever had, because she never lived till her 17th birthday. She was in grade 10 and then 11. Grade 10 and up until June, and then the fall, grade 11. So right behind Mark. Again, they were rivals. Both competing. I think they are both trying to get please our parents, which I think all kids are trying to do. And they had sibling rivalry. Pam was a good student. She was also in the orchestra with Mark. She played the cello, which is a large stringed instrument. She was an outstanding student, and I really looked up to her, really admired her. She was very outgoing. She was not only a good student and in the orchestra, but she did volunteer work. She worked as a candy striper at this hospital, a volunteer in a hospital. I think she worked in a nursing home too as a volunteer. She was involved with to try to help the environment, the movement. It was CAWF, C-A-W-F, Clean Air and Water or something or other. And good. And she was into health food. I remember one time she was talking about vitamin C. And this is a big thing. And I remember I was sick. I had a cold. And she said, "Oh, Peter, this can cure the cold." And I was hoping that she would, get me some vitamin C. I thought, first, it doesn't really cure colds. I mean, it probably helps. It's good for you, but if you have a cold and take vitamin C, I don't think you're going to be cured. But and I remember she was just busy. I remember kept waiting for her, and she never didn't bring me this vitamin C at the time, because she was very busy. Patricia turned 13. She was finished at Kensington. She was finished there, grade 6, which is the last year. Started the junior high in the fall. So Patty was making that tough adjustments, which I imagine she had I know I had a very tough time in junior high, and I imagine she had, because it's a big change going from the elementary school to the junior high, where you're with basically 7 grades, kindergarten through 6 in the elementary school. You walk to school, and I have the same kids. It's a nice community. Junior high is just grades 7 and 8, and it's like, oh, the kids are getting crazy. And all these new kids you don't know before, because they came from the other elementary schools, Bates, Beach, Worcester, and Goldwood. Now, I turned 10. I was in grades 4 and 5. Grade 4, we had, remember Miss Seckel. I was a good student. Miss Seckel she was strict. She was tough. I remember poor Rick Henneberg. She grabbed him by the ear. It was really cruel. She was pulling him around the room. And we didn't mess around with her. You had to toe the line, be a good student. The last day of the school year, up until dismissal, she had us copying stuff off the board. And we were complaining, although not rather quiet. We didn't. She would tolerate some complaints, but we were kids. And when we went to the Bahamas for Easter vacation, remember she said, I wish I could go in your suitcase with you. And I remember thinking to myself, trying to visualize that actually happening. She was just kidding, And then Miss Seckel. Then in the fall, I was in grade 5 with Mrs. Neuer. Yeah, Mrs. Neuer, who was she was a good teacher. Wasn't so strict. She was a little bit tough, but yeah, I think you felt more kindness coming from her. She lived in Kensington Apartments, not too far away from the school, just down the street, across Lake Road, and she had her nose was a little bit bent. She was a good teacher. I remember. Yeah, she was young. Yeah, she was a younger teacher as well. Miss Suckle was pretty old, and I remember one time. I think Bill Meyer and I've told this story. Bill Meyer and Kurt McKnight were kicking each other under their desks, and she called it playing footsies. So she had them come up and stand in front of the class and do this. She said, let everybody see you playing footsies. They weren't playing footsies. I don't know what you call it, but anyway. They came up. They were really embarrassed, and I told Kurt McKnight at the reunion. He said, because I wrote about this, I think, on the website. He said, Pete, we weren't playing footsies, whatever that means anyway. Now, the summer of 1970, I played Little League Baseball. On this telephone's going on, and the previous year in '69, I tried out but didn't make it. One year when we were 9 and 60, I was 9 in '69. You had to be good enough to play, and I apparently wasn't good enough. I remember going to the tryout, standing on home plate, because I didn't even know that you don't stand. That's where the ball is going to be thrown. That you have to be in the batter's box. So yeah, I didn't. It shows me how ignorant I was about baseball. And but by 1970, they had to let all the kids. If you wanted to join, regardless of your skills, you had to join. And I was a terrible player. And this was the beginning of my Little League experience, which was really pretty painful. But anyway, this became the strong desire I had to be a great baseball player, which never happened. And I transferred to our son Tim, who he actually was a tremendous player as a boy, but he didn't become pro. And every kid, except for a very small number, sooner or later you're going to have trouble and drop out, because that's just how it is. Only a very tiny number of people can play professional baseball or any sport. So anyway, this is the beginning of me, my quest. And even when I was 36 and went to Guam, I tried out for the Guam Olympic baseball team, because I still had that desire to be a great baseball player, but it didn't happen. So in summer of 1970, I remember. I don't think I got a hit. No, I think I got a hit my first at bat. Well, it was a weak hit, and my dad said, "Oh, you're batting 1,000." I didn't know what that meant. It's like 1 for 1. That was my only hit. I used to play. I was playing left field. There was a fly ball hit, and I ran in. This might have been in a later year. I ran into the fence because I was a terrible player. And I remember, oh man, next ball I got to catch it. So a fly ball hit my way, and I ran and ran and ran. It was a home run, and I ran into the fence, knocked myself out. And when I regained consciousness, all these people were there, and then they took me out of the game, and I was a hero. That's how when you're a kid, you become a hero through doing stuff, knocking yourself out. In fact, I was playing when I was younger. I remember playing baseball at Rocky River Park across the street from our home. Went out for a pass and looked back to the quarterback and ran right into a tree. Knocked myself out again. Again, woke up and all the guys were like, "Oh, you're admired if you do stuff like that." Years later, as an adult, I remember playing softball. I was age 25, and I was a catcher. And a big guy came. I was a play at the plate. The ball came in, and the ball came to me, and this guy ran right into me, and I went flying. I was unconscious, but apparently I was told that the guy was out. I hung on to the ball, although I was knocked out. Crazy. So anyway, that's so 1970. Yeah, we had a good family, a real good family. All things were going to change, because Pam died the next year. But good people, and we were all good students, and we were busy and productive. Although to be honest, I at this time was a television addict, unfortunately, very unfortunately. TV is very addictive, and I used to come home after school and make a beeline for the basement and turn on the TV, and from then until dinner. And I think this really hurt me. This happened a few years earlier when I was probably 7. It's maybe in 66, 67, every day. So instead of being outside running around playing, which would have been good and interactive physically, good physically and socially, then I deteriorated and I developed bad posture, which I still have ever since then. Bad posture, which is not good, reduces your energy. So anyway, you live in. I like the expression "it's all good" because everything leads to the spiritual path, and whatever challenges we have, whatever we go through. In my case, because of the problems I had based on television and developing. I remember I trying to look tough. I would bend over, look in the mirror to be, and it hurt. Developed bad posture. Yeah, not good. But anyway, so it all leads to the spiritual path, and which is what life's all about. I think, because if we seek God, we'll find happiness and fulfillment through following our spiritual path. So 1970, yeah, it was the year that was. And anyway, that I really thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. God bless you. Take care, and I'll see you next time.